First of all, thanks a lot for doing this. This is super helpful.
Yeah, no worries.
So the first question is, what is the recent skill you've learned in the game, or maybe something you're working on right now?
Um, it's a hard question, but I think since I'm playing the game competitively, we're just practicing with the team, trying to work better as team, push together. Communication is key. Working on our communications when we're in fights, especially, is particularly challenging. So I guess this would be the area that we need the most improvements on. But other than this, I think I just recently, since the Seiko nerf, started to use up more frequently as a gun. So I think maybe from the gun skill perspective, up was the one of the most recent things that I was putting time in.
hmm And for op specifically, what kind of skill? Like, is it just general shooting and hitting, or like quick scoping, or anything else?
Scoping, exactly. So that's very important because you have to be, I mean, even if you want to take your time and to aim your shot perfectly, the more accurate you aim your shot instantly, the less time you will need to adjust it and to hit the target. So it's very important that even if the enemy is very far away, that you scope in and you see him on your dot or
hmm
somewhere close to it, right? So yeah, quick
Interesting.
scoping has thing I was working on a lot, and it
Mhm.
helps. It helps a lot. It also helps you land maybe 2 or even 3 consequent shots very quickly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, how do you practice that? Is it just in game? You go and pick up paper op and try to shoot as much as possible, or do you go to training rooms, to private rooms?
I go to training park. I can record the video if you want to show
Mhm.
how I'm practicing. Yeah, so it was a bit hard to aim at the very beginning, but now I feel like after maybe a minute of practice, I I now have better aim with the default scopes. Like there you go, 3 in a row, almost 4. Oof, my arm is tired now. Yeah, I just try to scope in and by default hit the target that I would like to. Yeah, it's actually very helpful because this is what helps you to land jump shots, right? Oops, I'm sorry. Like when you have something in front of you, you pick it up with the up, you shoot, right? You jump and you shoot.
Oh, interesting. I've never been able to do that, so that's definitely something I can
Oh,
I
a
can
lot,
work
a
on.
lot of competitive players are doing that, and it's pretty effective.
Interesting. So you just throw yourself in the air, and while you're flying, you manage to hit someone?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I need to retire.
But yeah, it's just
Thank you.
about getting used to it and knowing where the aim will land by default, right?
Nice.
But
Um,
yeah, I can record the video. I'll share with you how I'm
oh, that
practicing.
would be amazing. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
Uh,
So yeah, after this practice, what it helps you to do is, for example, taking the jump shots I was describing. Okay, I can't build here. So for example, here, I would like to hit this Hattie. And because of the training with the quick scopes, it will be a lot faster to aim. For example, now, there you go. Now, for example, I want to hit this ace. Oh, that was too fast. Again on ace. Well, that's it.
Um, if you could give advice to yourself maybe a year ago, 6 months, not 6 months ago, what would be 3 things you would recommend yourself to do, and maybe 3 things to avoid?
3 things to do. I think in general, if you want to get better at the game, it's very important to play very aggressively in public games. Don't don't care so much about the winning, but actually the number of fights you are taking during your playtime. and the higher is the number of fights you can take, I think the better you will be as a player. So aggressive play style, hot drops. As frustrating as it can be, that sometimes, even now, I mean, when I'm taking breaks, if I hot drop and I'm alone, I can lose maybe 15 out of 20 games I'm playing. But at the same time, I'm constantly and getting better quickly. So I think that is important. But of course, if you are more of a chill player and just want to run around and just shoot people, this is still helpful if you want like hardcore practice. I think hot dropping and just pushing teams. So this is tip number 1. Tip number 2, what would I advise to myself? Being smart about your positioning, because in many fights, it's the outcome of the fight is not only determined by the shooting skills of people, but on how you position yourselves in this fight. And a lot of people, I think, underestimate it, and it shows up most in the competition. The team with the better positioning will most likely be winning fights. Better positioning and aggressive play style. Yeah.
Can you give some example of better positioning, maybe from your recent competitive game or
You just
Republic game?
It's hard. But for
I know.
example, when
Sorry,
you're
sorry for ambushing you.
when you're in the fight, right? You have to deal the more damage to your enemy than they will deal to you. So, we would usually start the fight from taking some snipes on the team, and if my teammates and I'm calling out the damage, if we feel that we've dealt some damage, they need some time to reheal, we start to push. But we don't just push dumbly. You should also be pushing by protecting yourself while doing this rotation into the enemy. So picking your route towards the enemy with some hard cover and protection, you don't take the damage, or just building on your way in a smart way. I think that's one. And also you have to be conscious of other teams on the map, where other teams are. Do not expose your back to the enemies, but instead try to put yourself in a place where your enemies would get partied, if ever. Now, and I was thinking about public games, is that sometimes when you get too aggressive, you just bluntly push 1v3, and you will just get destroyed. But other times, I mean, you can start the fight, you can be aggressive, but you don't have to be overly aggressive, because people, they usually don't hide in the corners, right? In this game, if you start the fight, people will start also going towards you. So picking yourself a nice position for this 1v3, keeping yourself covered, dealing the damage on the enemies, it's very important, I think.
Interesting. So, do you mean that kind of there is a balance of being aggressive but not overly aggressive?
Oh yeah.
Kind of
Oh
just
yeah,
staying on
of course,
that
of
line?
course. Yeah. You have to capitalize on the damage you deal to your enemies. Like, even if you are in a 1v3 situation in a public game, and like, if I headshot the guy for 148 and he's quite far away from his team, I would rather start pushing this guy instead of holding my position and killing him, and then all of a sudden it just becomes 1v2 instead of 1v3.
When you rotate to get to the best position, do you go into the zone often, or do you try to kind of to stay away from that and just be on the corner of the zone, maybe in the center?
There is a tactical positioning and I think like strategic one, right? When you're playing competitive and you are just trying to play the zone. I think tactically it can sometimes even be advantageous to take the zone side,
I
just
mean,
if you feel that you will be able. Yeah.
you even like stay inside the zone so you don't go outside.
Yeah. Like
Get
for
advantage of the
example,
position.
my team was in the outpost in one of the recent competitive games, and we had a team at the cemetery, and the zone was shrinking towards tower. So we decided to take the fight against these guys. So we were pushing from cemetery, from outpost towards cemetery, and the team, they were just leaving the cemetery church area. So two of my teammates, they were dealing the damage from like more houses, not the houses, but the area in between houses and the outpost, because basically they were blocking the enemy. At the same time, for example, I took the rotate and I took some zone damage, and I was dealing damage on these guys from the zone. So this is more of an example of a team play where you take the zone. So yes, I was taking the zone damage, but at the same time, these guys, they were getting shot from 3 different angles and they didn't have much cover. Um, I think this might be the example. An example where you, as a team, will all go to the zone in order to take the fight. Of course, that's not happen. That's not smart. But I think, yeah, this is the example where you would take tactical position, put yourself a bit maybe further from the team, but just to be more efficient in the fight as a squad.
Interesting. So the difference between tactical kind of movement and strategic positioning is it that kind of in general you move to the area you want to be, but while you do that, tactically you can diverge and go into the zone sometimes. Is that
Yeah,
exactly
exactly.
the
So
difference? Okay.
yeah, exactly. So normally you just want to be to know you should know when you see the next zone squeeze where you will go. And of course, it can be changed by the teams you see, but you don't plan from start to finish of the game, right? You would rarely take the rotates all the way across the map just because the most advantageous corner is on the other side. So most of the time, you would just go. You would just know generally in which direction the zone is shrinking. So you have to go there. But if you have to take the fight along this way, this is where being smart about the position comes. Taking the decision that okay, we go there, we get to this point, and there we take the fight against these guys, right? And then of course you adjust your plans according to if you see more teams. Then, for example, if you see that okay, by taking this fight, we will be pinching ourselves in between this team and the other team that's close, then maybe it's just better to accelerate and try to push further and to make this team's fight, and then you will be third partying this fight instead of this other team that you just discovered.
When the zone
Um,
shrinks, do you have any
yeah,
hard rules? So, for example, never stay in the corner or never go into the center, or is it all kind of contextual and you just
it's
adjust to
about the
the?
map. Actually, you play the map. You just see where the zone is on the map, and then you pick the location, right? So if we have the zone that's, for example, shrinks on this line from for example this sign going towards Summit, and then the rest of the zone is somewhere in the area of the refinery, you will probably want to find some place for yourself where you will have a hard cover, being protected as from many areas as possible. Um, yeah, it depends on the area. For example, like being in this house seems nice, but at the same time, people can push this house from 4 different directions, so it's
Mhm.
quite an open area to get to you.
Right.
While they can easily get into this house because there is just so much hard cover and they can push you in easily. Yeah, you play the map, and I think with the experience, you kind of understand the good positioning.
A question about kind of the teamwork. When you play together, you said that's extremely important. What aspects of kind of playing as a team do you think are the most kind of maybe difficult to train or most important in the game?
But that's just thinking as a unit, right? You can put 3 best players on the team and not executing good as a team if they are not playing as a unit. You will not be able to take 1v3s against good teams, not even 2v3s. If you're at a disadvantage, you're at a disadvantage, and 90% of the time you will lose until the other team will make a terrible mistake. So really, yeah, playing as team, and of course individual skill is important, but communicate, coordinate your pushes, coordinate your rotations, and everything. Take smart position as team as well.
Interesting.
Like the situation I described, that 2 people have one side of the angle on the team, the third person can rotate and just explore other angles to deal damage on the teams
Hmm.
while still being close to your team. I think one concept we discussed is that when we're taking fights as a team, we would like to stick close, but not close enough. So we don't want to all sit on this rock, for example, if we're fighting the team on sign or somewhere, and we have different angles on the team. But at the same time, I think theoretically what we said is that we don't want to be isolated as well. So, for example, you don't want to get far enough from your team that you are closer to the enemy, that you are closer with the team. So, I think you want to keep the distance between you and your team, but this distance between individual players on your team should never be longer, should never be shorter than the distance from any particular player to the opposing team, I think.
Oh, interesting. So,
Yeah.
oh, I see. So you try to stay closer than the distance from your team to the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Mhm.
like the maximum distance you can take from your teammate is basically the distance between you or your teammate and the enemy. That would be as far as you should be going from your team.
This is very interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. Otherwise, these guys they will have to spend shorter period of time to get to one of you than it will take to get to you, to your teammate, to help. I think that's
Yeah,
the point.
totally makes sense. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Any tips you would give yourself kind of to avoid, maybe to unlearn?
Unlearn.
Like for me, for example, it's things like tunnel vision. When I start shooting, it's very difficult for me kind of just to take a breath, look around, to make a decision. Maybe I need to disengage, or I don't know, do something else, throw a grenade.
Yeah, I think you're right. At the beginning, we also had this problem that every time we took the fight, we were committed 100% to this fight. So it's important to understand that you can start taking the fight, and if you don't feel that it's the right fight anymore, or the next zone shrink, for example, and the rotation is more important, you can disengage. Still have a hard time thinking what would I unlearn? What were the bad habits I was trying to get rid of? Honestly, probably flying in fights is very bad. And that was probably the mistake I was doing a lot as a newbie. Like, I will get someone down to 50 health or 100 health, and I would just start flying towards them and try to finish them. But when you are flying, this is the worst, absolute worst position you can be in any fight. Because you cannot protect yourself with builds, you are exposed to 360 degrees. This is very bad. So you should avoid probably flying while you're fighting the enemy. Or
Interesting.
if you fly, you will just fly as part of the rotate, right? I can build a wall here, and I can fly while building, but for this, I would need to know exactly where my enemies are. And this is something I would do like for in-fight rotate, right? And those will not be like huge fights. I will not be flying from here to there, but I would rather go down here or behind the rock, build and walk, or make small flights on the way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, I think maybe even in any fight, just keep dealing the damage, keep being aggressive. Even if you are low, a lot of people think that, okay, it's time to push, and they will start pushing you because you need time to heal. But even if you are, I don't know, even if you are 50 health, you can just capitalize so much on just aggression of the people if they just start pushing you. They overexpose themselves and just capitalize on these errors. So yeah, maybe healing in the fight is not always a priority, especially when your enemy is close. You just have to keep dealing the damage, I think. But of course, this
Interesting.
is situational. But I think it was my personal mistake because I would freak out every time I get down to 50 health, for example. I would just hide and stop fighting. I would just look for heals and everything. But you can fight perfectly fine with 50 health.
Thank you. And one of the last questions, maybe the last one. You mentioned communication in the team. Do you use markers when you play with your teammates? What kind of markers? Do you use just blue one, or do you switch between yellow, red, purple, green?
No, we just use the standard marker. We discussed it and we were thinking maybe it would be advantageous to use different markers, but and we tried, but we didn't really see a lot of benefit.
Huh, interesting. Do you have any rules of where you put the marker, like not on the person to avoid the marker blocking the target, things like that?
No, you mark,
Mhm.
and then you remove the mark when your teammates give you the affirmative that they understood your situation. And it's still something that we're working on. Yeah, I can mark and, for example, say we have the enemy there, and then just remove the marker instantly, so it doesn't obstruct the view. But sometimes it would be too fast. So usually I'm trying to wait for the affirmative from my team saying okay, and then I'm removing the marker.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. It's super helpful.
Sure, you're welcome. My pleasure.